Dear perceptive reader, being that we cannot imitate every single thing that Jesus showed us about Jehovah God and how he lived his life, we still have the example to do the best that we can to be like them. And here is one example that I really appreciate. Sometimes, depending on what mode of mind you're in, or should I say what mood you're in, it can even feel that it's too much, it's overbearing, it's irritating, or what have you. However, we still do the best we can. What is that? Well, if you'll notice, when it came to God's prophets back in the olden days, and then it actually moved to the Christian congregation, God was always telling them, you know what? Let the people know about my commandments. Let the people know how I feel about this. And so this is something that, depending on person's circumstances, some of them did it just every single day. We know the prophets were doing it all, really, that's what was their life commissions back in the olden days, or the Old Testament, so to speak. But when God sent persons to go say, this is what they needed to do to repent, when they walked into that town, they didn't say it just one time and leave. They actually just kept saying it. They kept doing it. The same thing with Jesus. And one thing about Jesus, as you can continue to see, is when you really love someone deeply, it's almost like humility just comes naturally. You don't even have to give deep meditation as far as what you would do for this person or that person, because the love is so great. Jesus also showed us that he can love you very deeply, but you weren't going to run over top of him either. You see what I'm talking about? And yet still talking in reference to the communication of God's laws and his commandments, who he is. We see what? Conversations all throughout the four Gospels, when people literally ask questions about this and that, and he responded to them. Even persons like the Pharisees who didn't like him at all. And we know Jesus even knew it. And yet, look how he entertained, so to speak, their questions at times for this reason or that. So that really, maybe not as much that, he needed to do it, but it still had a benefit for the people, at least, who was listening. And maybe, again, even for the ones who were against him, they couldn't say that Jesus didn't try. You know what I mean? They couldn't say that Jesus just came on the earth and just talked to the downtrodden people, and and just left those persons who were already in positions of authority and power without some form of witness of the way that God's principles and laws really are the best, you see. And so that is an example. And that's why I mentioned, no matter what type of personality we have, because you can certainly appreciate different flowers. And I want to continue to say, you can appreciate the range of personalities from the extroverts to the introverts. And you can see why they actually function with their human interactions with different types of people, where some, just won't put up with nothing. Once they came to a conclusion on who you are, and listen, me not on who you are, but in other words, let's say you ask them a question on a complicated math problem, okay? And an introvert, who knows, will give you the answer at least the first time, may even take you through the step. And then you may still be having difficulty with it. And so the introvert will sometimes give you the walkthrough, if you will, the process a second time. And see, and that, well, you know what? I was going to tell you something before I finish it. So let me finish what I'm saying right now. And we'll give you the answer and the walkthrough process the second time. And then, if you got a notepad or what have you, it would be best for you to just write it down so that you can have it for yourself. Why? Because most likely, depending on the personality of the introvert, you're not going to get it no more than that second time. It's like that's just all to it. So you got to always be even ready in some cases to accept the word, if you will, or what the person is saying. And then you can actually, like I said, go back and meditate on this way and that way, whatever you see the discussion was. Now, this is the important fact of what I said. Let me finish what I just told you first, because the fact of the matter is, and you can take this to the bank, no matter how you learn, no matter what your personality is, it's time for me to mention that Maria quote again. If you don't have the accurate information, you can't act. And that's what actually writing things down help us to do. Even though I got to tell you, there's a lot of situations today, and hopefully it won't always be this way. It's almost like, boy, whatever information you get, you just got to store it in a file cabinet of your mind and hold on to it for dear life because of, security and things of that nature. All the same, if you get the accurate information, if part of solving the math problem is when you get to this step, the color changes from, blue to orange or what have you. But somehow in the translation of the information, or, could even be purposely misleading in a sense, it doesn't tell you for the color to change from maybe blue to orange or what have you. It ends up saying some other different type of color. And yet, this is now the information that you have that you are thinking is accurate. And boy, hopefully you'll run into another personality that you can trust one day to tell you, no, James, don't you know that really 5 years ago, 8 years ago, this really was, you see, the variable to that equation. So imagine being misled for 5 to 8 years or even longer on something that was so important that you sincerely and genuine was trying to figure out. See, this is why the scriptures talk about God's reminders, you see, are good basically for our soul. And why he also was telling his prophets, tell them again and again, because sometimes, one, it gives a clarification of the statements that they are accurate of everything about God. And yet it also gives persons time to still learn, you see, to still clear up information from, other sources that just were not accurate, that were actually even misleading. So this is an aspect of whatever type of personality we have. We can understand the importance of always being willing. And what I mean is that doesn't mean, like I said, you sit there and you let somebody pull your leg all day long, asking questions all day long. But the point is, this is the reason why we don't never want to get totally to the point where it's like, where I said it to the person once and that's it. Persons certainly have their choice, but I wanted to give you at least 2 examples on how no one can say that God did not tell, the world his name which his personal name is Jehovah God, and that he is the total example of what love is. The total example of what love is. And so was Jesus. Okay? Have a wonderful day, Perceptive Reader.